Everyone is lamenting that Star Media has signed a natural beauty, which immediately caught the attention of the world. It wasn't until her family background was exposed that people exclaimed that this girl was born in Rome. Later on, she won the Fields Award, and the excitement of the world was indescribable. Why can a person be so perfect? No one knows that she has served as the Empress in battle on the battlefield, and also led a large army of human beings to sweep extraterrestrial races. She saved countless people with her superb medical skills, and also shook the world with music. Fuguang, who was reborn for the 18th time, was finally able to step out of his cycle. Fuguang. Is the world subservient to me? Ji Ingzhou. I also submit to you. Novel keywords. Exclusive hot search without pop-ups, exclusive hot search TXT complete collection download, exclusive hot search latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 2. Help. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Help. Let me take a look. Fuguang's voice was very calm, but in the tense and restless cabin, it was like thunder on the ground. Several anxious flight attendants turned their heads one after another, but when they saw Fuguang, who was tall and upright, their expectant gaze instantly dimmed for the most part. The flight attendant who served first class recognized her. Although she was anxious, she still stood up politely. Miss Yen, why are you here? If you have any needs, I will come to you later. Would that be okay with you? Fuguang smiled. Did you treat her like a little girl watching the excitement? But now Fuguang doesn't have time to explain to her, and no matter how much she explains, no one will believe that she is a doctor who can treat and save people. Fuguang squatted down and skillfully stepped into the midst of several flight attendants. He leaned over the patient's chest and listened for a few seconds, while his left hand measured the carotid artery and examined his pupils. This is an acute asthma attack, and he will soon suffocate. It seems that he doesn't have any medication with him. He must be artificially ventilated now, otherwise his life will be in danger at any time. Fuguang spoke out his judgment directly, causing an uproar among the onlookers. Originally, someone was curious when Fuguang walked over, but no one would have thought that she was the so-called doctor she was looking for on the radio. Fuguang has been wearing a baseball cap all along, and no one can see her face clearly, but from the sound, it is clear that this girl is definitely not very old. So young, just here to guide the country. Someone began to grumble in the crowd. Can there be anything more outrageous than the anxious flight attendant who doesn't know whether to cry or laugh at this moment? They all have information about first-class passengers, and they know that Fuguang is just an 18-year-old girl who doesn't even know whether she went to college or not. They even said that this person would die. At this moment, the patient lying on the ground struggled even more fiercely, as if being tightly grabbed by someone's neck and potentially choking at any time and place. What should I do? The flight attendants are a bit disoriented. They have indeed received relevant emergency training, but today this situation is clearly beyond their ability. The flight is now very close to the destination city of Sanya in the island province, and the crew has also contacted the airport. The ambulance has arrived and is on standby. How can we survive these short 10 minutes? Fuguang is well aware that if the patient's heart stops beating if he continues to drag on, he is likely to die on the spot. Even if he is later saved, it will cause irreversible damage to his brain. I can't wait anymore. Fuguang grabbed the hand of the flight attendant beside him and ordered, "Hold him down, don't move." Then he pulled over the medical kit and began disinfecting his hands. The panicked flight attendant instinctively followed suit, but the next second she looked at the flight attendant in confusion. What should I do? The purser's throat rolled hard as he tried to calm his mind and asked, "Miss Yen, what are you going to do?" Fuguang looked up at her and said, "Tracheal incision, establish artificial airway." Hiss! The sound of gasping echoed around, and people couldn't understand what an artificial airway was, but the 4 words, tracheostomy, were understandable to everyone. It's too outrageous. Little girl, who are you? If you come up, you have to cut off your popularity. The flight attendant was also so shocked that her heart almost stopped beating, and in an instant, many thoughts flashed through her mind. If the passenger is refused, they may die directly. If they agree, it is unknown whether they can be saved. If the passenger is cut to death by Fuguang, she may lose her job. If the family causes trouble, the entire crew cannot escape the responsibility. It can be said that 1,000 ways in 10,000, human life is at stake. Miss Yen, are you confident? The purser's voice couldn't help but tremble. Now, whenever there was another way, she wouldn't have pinned her hope on a strange and overly young little girl. Fuguang understood her concerns, but there were no doctors on the plane now. If she didn't take action, this person would definitely not be able to sustain the plane to land. Believe me. Fuguang's firm and calm voice seemed to have magical power, and the flight attendant made up his mind. She immediately instructed several flight attendants to hold down the patient's limbs, leaving only one person to maintain order on board. Fuguang took out the surgical knife from the medical kit, accurately felt the position of the cricoid cartilage with his left hand, and directly made an incision about 3 centimeters long. Oh my goodness! Damn it, my goodness! A passenger with good news stretched their neck to look at this, but the bloody scene was too frightening. Ordinary people have never seen this before, and they just take a knife and scratch their throat. Blood gushed out from the wound, and this scene severely stimulated everyone's nerves. The round-faced flight attendant across from Fuguang was so shocked that he couldn't breathe, his hands trembling all the time, and the cold sweat on his forehead flowed down his cheeks. Fuguang glanced at her and calmly said, "Pay attention to sweat, don't contaminate the wound." Ah. Oh, I know. The round-faced flight attendant anxiously turned his head and rubbed his sweat against his clothes, still daring not to leave. Fuguang inserted the handle of the knife into the trachea incision and slightly rotated it to separate the soft tissue, allowing air to enter and exit freely. There was no specialized endotracheal tube in the medical kit, so only a flexible tube could be used as a replacement. Fuguang quickly inserted the tube into the airway incision, immediately stopped the bleeding with gauze, and then fixed the tube. In fact, at the moment of cutting open the trachea, the middle-aged man's gong-like breathing eased slightly. After inserting the hose, his face, which was holding back and turning red, gradually calmed down. "All right," Fuguang's voice sounded softly. The purser looked up in a daze, seemingly incredulous, and said, "Is that all right?" This. She didn't say the second half of the sentence, and things seemed slightly simpler than she had imagined, although having an extra tube on her bloody neck was a bit scary. The man on the ground now calmed down a lot. Although he still closed his eyes and was sweating profusely, his chest was at least heaving like a normal person, not like before, as if he was about to breathe out the next second. Although emergency surgery has many drawbacks, it is always better than dying. Fuguang took off his gloves and instructed, "Don't move him for now. There are still more than 10 minutes left to land and there won't be any problems." She is not as calm as she just saved a life. Fuguang stood up to leave, but as she straightened up, a sudden sharp pain in her head made her shake. The round-faced flight attendant kept an eye on Fuguang and immediately gave her a helping hand upon seeing the situation. She said with concern, "Miss Yen, are you okay?" Fuguang closed his eyes and slowed down for a while before saying, "It's okay, it's just that I've been squatting for a long time and feel a bit dizzy. Don't worry about me, you guys should be busy." Speaking, Fuguang took off her hand and walked slowly back. She enjoyed the deadly sequela for 17 times, damn time, old man. When I was blowing wind in my backyard, I suddenly sneezed. Who is missing me again? Isn't it my little ancestor? Well, I don't think so. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. First Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 First Encounter. Looking at the bloodstains on his arms, Yan Fuguang felt a bit nauseous and tried to hold back the discomfort, preparing to go to the restroom for treatment. After getting off the plane, she had to find a place to sleep first. She had really had enough of this headache-like sensation. While Yan Fuguang picked up a handful of water and poured it on her face. Cold droplets of water dripped down her eyelashes, and she looked up. Finally, she had the opportunity to look at herself in this life. How to describe it? A fair and jade-like face with a pair of slightly heroic eyebrows, shining like morning dew with charming and seductive colors, seems to capture the soul. Thick eyelashes are like a finishing touch, and the delicate and tall nose bridge, coupled with a stunning lip shape, all indicate that this is an unparalleled beauty. Yan Fuguang is not the world's #1 beauty and stunning actress who has never been a beauty and caused disputes in the martial arts world. She has experienced all of these firsthand, but to be honest, having a face in front of her is indeed more advantageous. It seems that the Creator's heart has deviated to the extreme, otherwise how could such a perfect celestial creature be? Yan Fuguang raised his hand and lightly touched the corner of his lips, and his smile seemed even more beautiful. After tormenting himself so many times, Time-old man still gave some benefits. Looking at the white T-shirt and jeans on his body, Yan Fuguang was quite satisfied with the original owner's gaze, and judging from the texture, it seemed that his family was quite well off. Everything about the original body is still being loaded, and it is estimated that it will take more than 10 minutes to end. Thinking that Time can say that he can do whatever he wants in this life, Yan Fuguang has some expectations for the future. Pushing open the bathroom door, Yan Fuguang still felt dizzy. She leaned against the wall for a few seconds before slowly walking back. As she passed by the first row of seats, suddenly Yan Fuguang's gaze met that of the person by the window, and she was stunned for a moment. Although his face was already stunning enough, this man could still be called a stunning genius. He looks in his 20s, with short hair and shirt cuffs rolled up to the middle of his arms, revealing his robust forearms. The collar of the white shirt is slightly open, and the smooth lines of his neck make his Adam's apple particularly sexy. Looking up, the sharp and angular jawline angle is as perfect as the golden ratio, the thick eyebrows slightly rebel towards the temples, and the facial features are like a masterpiece of exquisite craftsmanship. The rosy lips under the high nose bridge seem to emit a tempting aroma, revealing mature elegance in the handsome, and a pair of firm and deep eyes seem to be able to see through people's hearts. Ji Ingzhou knew that the girl in the same cabin had just caused quite a commotion in the back, but he completely did not expect her to be so young and still have such a face. There were still traces of water on his face, and the long hair on his forehead had also dampened a few strands, reflecting the sunlight in the clouds outside the porthole. Yan Fuguang was like a soul-stirring fairy. Ji Ingzhou suddenly wanted to say something, but the two didn't know each other. In the end, he just nodded lightly towards Yan Fuguang. Yan Fuguang also nodded in response, and seeing such a delightful beauty on the first day of her new life seemed to alleviate her headache quite a bit. Returning to his seat, Yan Fuguang leaned back in his chair, his eyes closed wearily, continuing to endure the impact of the massive flow of information. Ji Ingzhou couldn't help but turn around and take a look in the light and shadow. Yan Fuguang's eyebrows furrowed slightly, his lips were still a bit pale, and his whole body felt a bit fragile, appearing unusually quiet. Secretary Duan Lang thought Ji Ingzhou had something to say and whispered, "Boss, what's up?" Thinking that the previous noise in the cabin might have affected the boss's rest, Duan Lang immediately said, "After the maintenance is completed tomorrow, the crew will come directly and it won't affect your return journey." Usually, most of Ji Ingzhou's trips take his own Gulfstream G650. This time, it was a temporary trip to the island province and happened to catch up with the regular maintenance of the plane. Ji Ingzhou didn't explain and nodded in agreement. Ji Ingzhou, who had regained his thoughts, continued to close his eyes and recuperate. He did not rest well, as the company had some problems with a recent acquisition case. He has been working overtime for many consecutive days. Due to the presence of a critically ill patient, the aircraft's alternate landing process was exceptionally rapid, with green lights on the tower and ambulances parked at the runway waiting. As soon as the plane landed, Yen Fuguang was gently awakened by someone, still the round-faced flight attendant. "Miss Yen, after getting off the plane later, you may need to cooperate with the doctor to explain the situation, and also with the family members." She hesitated halfway through speaking, as if she couldn't say something. Yen Fuguang turned to look at her and said, "What's wrong with the family?" Unexpectedly, the flight attendant was full of embarrassment and seemed to bring some apologies. Originally, the family heard about Yen Fuguang's life-saving methods and insisted on seeing her in person. Although there was no explicit explanation, the tone sounded as if it was about to cause trouble. But there is nothing the airline can do about it either. After all, it happened on the plane, and Yen Fuguang is also a party involved. It is difficult for their families to stop them if they want to see someone. Moreover, the patient has not yet been handed over to the doctor, and the airline is also afraid of taking responsibility if there is a problem. Yen Fuguang, with such exquisite thoughts, immediately guessed something and said, "I understand, I will cooperate." The round-faced flight attendant breathed a heavy sigh of relief. She didn't expect Yen Fuguang to be so reasonable. To be honest, she had already been impressed by Yen Fuguang's courage. However, even under the eaves, they could only obediently listen to the company's words. Yen Fuguang's restlessness gradually grew in his heart. If the family members spoke well, she would be willing to cooperate. If it was unreasonable, she would definitely not be polite. There's not much to endure humiliation in this life. The first-class cabin was very quiet, and the flight attendant's words made Ji Ingzhou understand that the little girl was trying to save someone from a problem. Ji Ingzhou, who has always been idle, couldn't help but feel the urge to help. Could it be that fleeting glance a few minutes ago? This effortless figure can no longer be shaken away. As soon as the plane came to a stop, medical staff rushed up to transfer the patient. The flight attendant politely invited and walked towards the nearby ambulance with Yen Fuguang. There stood a middle-aged woman and an old lady standing there, crying and grabbing a stretcher without letting go. The staff couldn't stop her and didn't know if she wanted to die or live. Even doctors couldn't argue with her. The round-faced flight attendant followed her and couldn't help but speak out to comfort her, "Miss Yen, don't worry. I just talked to our doctor and they said that your treatment is not a problem. If it weren't for your timely treatment, the gentleman might not be able to make it to the landing. Don't be too psychologically burdened." Unexpectedly, Yen Fuguang just smiled and didn't seem to take it seriously. "I'm not worried." The flight attendant couldn't help but look up at the tall girl. Although the baseball cap covered most of Yen Fuguang's face, the curvature of her mouth indicated that she was truly not afraid. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Help. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Help. When Yen Fuguang approached, the doctor had just been able to snatch the stretcher from the family's hands. The middle-aged woman stayed behind to continue negotiations, and the old lady accompanied the patient to the hospital first. If it weren't for learning from the doctor that the patient's life was temporarily at ease, she would be able to perform a heartbreaking headache here with peace of mind. Yen Fuguang couldn't help but rub his eyebrows, hoping to quickly resolve these troublesome matters. If she didn't sleep anymore, her head would explode. The middle-aged woman looked up and saw the figure of Yen Fuguang. With 2 big steps, she rushed over and wanted to grab someone. Yen Fuguang turned around and let go. Although he didn't exert much force, he made this sturdy woman unable to approach. "Is it you, little girl, who touches my husband casually? Do you have the qualifications to practice medicine? Who is responsible for what happens? Isn't this a reckless act? The middle-aged woman pointed at Yan Fuguang and started cursing, her saliva splashing everywhere. The staff couldn't even hold her back, and even tried to persuade her more and more. They wished Yan Fuguang and his whole family could come along and scold him, and the crew was also criticized by her for being like pigs and dogs, blaming them all as accomplices. Not far away, as soon as Ji Ingzhou got off the gangway, he heard a piercing noise. Seeing the middle-aged woman still wanting to pull someone, he instinctively frowned. Duan Lang also followed the boss's gaze and couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Didn't you say it was saved? This is just trying to touch the porcelain." Ji Ingzhou no longer hesitated and whispered, "Let someone go and take a look." Duan Lang looked at his own boss in surprise. Is this a sudden idea or a heartfelt act? The two accompanying lawyers were originally here to discuss the acquisition case, but they didn't expect to come to the airport before they had a temporary job. However, the boss's orders naturally had to be taken care of, and Duan Lang immediately explained a few words to a cold-faced man behind him wearing glasses and carrying a briefcase. Zhang Dingjia looked up at the ambulance and nodded in agreement. They all know what happened on the plane, it's nothing more than dealing with unreasonable family members, it's a piece of cake. The middle-aged woman continued to output, and only her voice could be heard from a few dozen meters around. Just as Yan Fuguang couldn't bear it anymore, a cold and stern voice came from behind. "Madam, your current behavior involves infringing on citizens' reputation, and in severe cases, it may constitute the crime of insult and defamation. This lady has the right to file a lawsuit against you and demand compensation. Are you sure you still want to do so?" As soon as Zhang Dingjia finished speaking, he turned around and handed a business card to Yan Fuguang, whispering, "Hello, I am Zhang Dingjia from the legal department of Guanyin Technology. The boss asked me to come over and see if there is anything I can help with." As he spoke, he raised his hand and gestured for Ji Ingzhou not far away. Yan Fuguang took the business card and picked it up. He didn't know what material it was, but the surface texture of the metal wire drawing was excellent. On the front was Zhang Dingjia's name and position, and on the back was a long string of Chinese characters. Guanyin Technology Group Holding Company, Limited. Your boss. Yan Fuguang looked up and saw Ji Ingzhou nodding slightly towards her. Yes, you can let me know if you have any requirements, and I will help you solve any further troubles. Zhang Dingjia's voice was extremely calm. Although this episode came unexpectedly, the work assigned by the boss must be completed perfectly. Yan Fuguang, who still has a lot of information in his mind, doesn't know what company Lightyear Technology is, but she has a good eye for people. Since someone is willing to help and the people who come look relatively safe, why not do it? Yan Fuguang smiled and said, "I don't have any requirements, I just want to fight quickly and make a quick decision. I need to rest." Yan Fuguang was very tall, standing almost at the same level as Zhang Dingjia's line of sight. Zhang Dingjia's corner of the eye caught a glimpse of Yan Fuguang's slightly pale lip color, quickly calming his mind and responding, "Okay, rest assured that it will be resolved within half an hour." Speaking, Zhang Dingjia straightened his sleeves and walked towards the middle-aged woman. The airport staff also have a headache. The middle-aged woman who was supposed to be intimidated is already difficult enough to handle. Now why is a lawyer involved? What is the origin of this little girl who saves people? Someone took over the matter, so Yan Fuguang decided to shield everything around him and found a cool place to close his eyes and rest. The nerves on his scalp were throbbing and painful, it was really uncomfortable. After an unknown amount of time, Yan Fuguang felt someone approaching and opened his eyes. Zhang Dingjia, who still looked like an elite, walked over quickly. "Miss Yan, the patient's family has agreed to sign a settlement agreement. If they continue to insist in the future, you can file a lawsuit based on the settlement agreement. You can rest assured." Zhang Dingjia quickly explained the situation. "So I can go now?" She couldn't hold on anymore. "Yes, you can leave now, but if it's convenient, you'd better leave an address so that I can send you the settlement letter." Zhang Dingzhe fulfilled his duty. Address. Yan Fuguang smiled, I won't have an address until I find my residence. Yan Fuguang's words left Zhang Dingzhe slightly stunned. He didn't know that Yan Fuguang's mind was in chaos now, and he didn't know where his home was or where he got his address. Yan Fuguang raised the business card in his hand and said, when I arrive at the hotel, I will send you the address. By the way, thank your boss for me. Okay, Zhang Dingzhe nodded and watched as Yan Fuguang left. Yan Fuguang's personality was very different from what he had expected. He thought it was because the boss had a kind heart and was afraid that the little girl who was good at saving people would be bullied. However, Yan Fuguang remained calm like an outsider, as if he could solve the problem even if he didn't come to the house. Shaking his head to put away his thoughts, Zhang Dingzhe called Duan Lang to report. Inside the business car, Duan Lang's phone rang. Lawyer Zhang. Is that so? Okay, I get it. Hanging up the phone in a low voice, Duan Lang hesitated whether to disturb the boss who was reading the documents. Unexpectedly, Ji Yingzhou took the initiative to speak up. Is the matter done? Duan Lang immediately replied, yes, everything has been processed and we will send the settlement letter to Miss Yen. Without waiting for the boss to ask, Duan Lang continued, that lady's surname is Yen and her name is Yan Fuguang. Yan Fuguang and Ji Yingzhou silently recited in their hearts a very nice name. Duan Lang has been working with Ji Yingzhou for almost 10 years. This is the first time he has seen his boss pay extra attention to a person of the opposite sex. Although the boss didn't say anything, Duan Lang has a feeling that maybe this episode won't end there. Yan Fuguang braved his headache and quickly walked out of the airport. While waiting in line for the bus, he began to pick up his phone. Although it was unclear who this Yan Fuguang was, he had to figure out how much money he had on him first. Just take a look, oh, WeChat has a balance of over 200,000 yuan. So much pocket money. You should know that her ID card is actually 18 years old. Anyway, there was no shortage of money. After getting on the bus, Yan Fuguang directly told the taxi driver to go to the best hotel in the local area. A good night's sleep is not as important as anything now. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Survival Variety. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Survival Variety. When I arrived at the hotel, I didn't take a closer look at the name Yan Fuguang. Anyway, the appearance looks pretty good. He casually opened a room, and after entering, Yan Fuguang casually threw his suitcase against the wall. He threw himself straight onto the bed, buried in a pile of soft pillows, and fell into deep sleep. After an unknown amount of time, a dull phone call rang. Yan Fuguang closed his eyes and searched around, finally finding his phone under his pillow. Hello. Her voice was still somewhat hoarse, sounding a hangover-like lack of clarity. Excuse me, is this Miss Yan Fuguang? This is the survival program group on the deserted island. Once again, I would like to inform you that our meeting time is tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m., on the beach opposite the Melissa Holiday Hotel. The specific information has been sent to your mobile phone. Could you please pay attention? Yan Fuguang didn't even listen to what was said later, just waited for the annoying voice to stop, threw the phone away, and fell asleep again in seconds. I don't know how long it took until she regained consciousness and the headache finally eased. The electronic clock at the head of the bed showed 5:48, and the gaps in the curtains faintly revealed some morning light. So did you sleep for over 30 hours this time? It seems like there was a phone call in the middle. Yan Fuguang found his phone and a message popped up on the screen. Hello Miss Yan Fuguang, the reality show, Survival on a Desolate Island, that you have signed up for is about to gather. We hereby notify you as follows. What is the reality show, Survival on a Desolate Island? 5 minutes later, Yan Fuguang, whose brain gradually resumed operation, finally sorted out his thoughts. The original owner actually signed up for a reality show without telling his parents, and the reason was really speechless. The degree of the original owner's teasing made Yan Fuguang feel ridiculous and somewhat cute. Yan Fuguang is indeed a little rich woman because her parents are really wealthy. My mother was a globally renowned mixed-race supermodel when she was young, and later founded the eponymous high-end brand Alaya. In just a few years, she became a popular designer sought after by countless people. My father is also a master painter who is popular in the art collection circle. As long as there are works to be auctioned, the transaction price is definitely around 7 or 8 zeros. However, her parents divorced when she was very young. Her mother often lived in Europe, and her father was also a fan of the world. The sensitive little girl felt that she did not receive her parents' love, so she began to confront them in everything. Her parents originally hoped that she would further her education in the art field, but rebellious Yan Fuguang naturally refused. She doesn't want to be related to art at all. She works hard to study cultural courses, preferably without any resemblance to her parents. Of course, studying is also possible. Her mother asked if she wanted to study at Oxford, and her father asked if she wanted to go to the United States. All right now, she's not going anywhere and insists on studying at a university in China. I didn't expect she really got into it. She went to Shanghai University to study for her freshman year in September this year, majoring in outrageous mathematics. It can only be said that the little girl is really skilled in learning. At this point, her parents have no choice but to take advantage of her. Fortunately, Fudan University is also a prestigious university in China, and Yan Fuguang's willingness to pursue academic studies is not a problem. At least her life is relatively stable. It's okay not to say that, but when she said it, she exploded again. Do you want me to be stable again? I'm not sure. Coincidentally, at this moment, survival on a desolate island has arrived. This program is heavily promoted with the gimmick of 5 celebrities teaming up with 2 amateurs to survive on a deserted island, and once released, it caused waves on the internet. Although the format of the program has never been before and no one knows what the broadcast effect will be, it cannot resist sponsors spending a lot of money on resources. The program is exclusively sponsored by the newly launched short video live streaming app, Lightning, under Lightyear Technology, and will be presented to the audience in a live broadcast format, striving to recreate the true journey of each guest on a deserted island. And the person with the highest live streaming popularity, whether a celebrity or an amateur, will receive a 1-year endorsement contract for Lightning. Yan Fuguang secretly submitted her resume to the program team without telling her parents. Even though survival in the wilderness may encounter danger, she doesn't care about anything and can just confront her parents. I don't know how many people applied for Yan Fuguang in the end, and it's also unclear what criteria were used to select her. Anyway, the final result is that she was selected. Memories turned here, and Yan Fuguang suddenly paused Lightyear Technology. Yan Fuguang searched around and finally found Zhang Dingzhi's business card in his jeans pocket. The logo of Lightyear Technology caught his eye. Is it so coincidental? In Yan Fuguang's eyes, her original rebellion is no different from a child's mischief. Although her parents are busy, they do not care about her. Even every time her rebellion ends with their compromise. However, the sensitive little girl has always been immersed in her own world, completely unaware of the impact such a decision will bring to her parents. This is a deserted island survival show that needs to sign a disclaimer agreement with the crew. Getting up and pulling open the curtains, there was a quite large balcony outside. The gentle breeze swept through the waves and gradually entered the ears. Yan Fuguang stood quietly against the railing. There are still 2 hours until the time notified by the production team, will we go or not? Yan Fuguang twisted his sore neck and temporarily put this matter aside. She is now 175 centimeters tall, but unfortunately she has no strength to restrain herself. With this physique, she still exceeds her ability to survive on a deserted island. Even if the production team reduces the difficulty, it will be difficult for her to survive. Yen Fuguang is really not used to such a weak body. She remembered the fitness exercises of the interstellar era. Although it is a basic version that only elementary school students will learn, it is still a product of the Super Gene era, and it is more than enough to cope with the current body. Unconsciously, an hour passed, and Yen Fuguang, who was sweating profusely, collapsed on the balcony railing, feeling sore all over and not even wanting to move his fingers. I didn't expect that even the most basic fitness exercises would make her look like this. It's too weak. After more than 5 minutes of paralysis, Yen Fuguang moved his lead-filled legs to the bathroom and poured a bathtub of water, causing his whole body to sink. The temperature of the water made people drowsy, and after about 10 minutes, the phone rang again. The assistant of the program team is really dedicated. As soon as she arrived at 7 o'clock, she clocked in and sent a message to Yen Fuguang, reminding her not to forget the gathering time. Yen Fuguang leaned against the bathtub, lazily swiping his phone screen with his fingers. Since there's nothing to do, it's not bad to go and have fun. Anyway, this so-called survival on a deserted island cannot compare to the hardships she once faced in marching and fighting. Putting down his phone, Yen Fuguang rested for a while until the soreness on his body gradually subsided before pulling the towel and getting ready to get up. The mirror in the bathroom occupies half of the wall, and the embedded lights emit a hazy light. The water vapor in the bathroom sways and drifts with the light. Yen Fuguang stood quietly, looking at himself in the mirror. How much love does heaven have to give in order to create such a masterpiece, perfectly stunning and unparalleled beauty? Every inch is the ultimate. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Vases. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Vases. Yen Fuguang lifted the suitcase by the wall and opened it to take a look. Fortunately, the original owner just had a twisted mind and had no problem with aesthetics. There were no strange clothes in the box, only sportswear and casual wear that were convenient for travel, and there were also 2 pairs of sneakers. She tied up her ponytail, changed into a smoky gray sports suit, and then took out the hat to put on. It's just past 7:20, so taking a taxi should be just right. The gathering place is on a public beach not far from the hotel, as it's still early and there aren't many tourists on the way. From a distance, you can see a circled area, and the budget-conscious production team seems to have rented out that small piece of beach. The staff entering and leaving are all wearing work vests with the words, "Survival on a Deserted Island," printed on them, and from time to time, someone loudly schedules the camera seats. Before the large-scale variety show and Yen Fuguang, they had been inseparable for more than a decade. When bored, she watched variety shows, but it was her first time coming to the filming site. At this moment, a young man passed by, and Yen Fuguang glanced at the work sign on his chest, which read, "Lighting Assistant." "Hello, may I ask if the guest gathering point is here?" Little Lu didn't expect to be suddenly stopped, and when he turned his head, he was startled. Oh, what a tall girl. Yen Fuguang was wearing a hat and sunglasses, and Xiao Lu couldn't see his appearance clearly. However, it was obvious that he wasn't one of the few celebrities on the list, so he was just one of the 2 amateur guests. "Hello, have you seen the row of tents at the back? You can go directly to the room with the art bureau sign, where there are dedicated people to receive you." Xiao Lu pointed to the way. Yen Fuguang looked up and nodded, "Thank you." Little Lu looked at Yen Fuguang's back for a few seconds without realizing it. Besides everything else, the sound was quite pleasant. Someone has long been discussing the origins of these 2 amateur guests. After all, they need to shoot with several celebrities, which can easily lead to a lack of presence. Without the camera, it would be a waste of the gimmicks created by the production team. He has already met another amateur, who is an extreme sports and adventure enthusiast. Although not many ordinary people know him, he is definitely a prominent figure in their circle, active on the internet, and has a large number of fans on Instagram. The other one only heard that she is a girl, and he doesn't know what she is doing at any age. He is an unknown person and has no place to inquire. So, this tall girl, can only say good luck to her. The production team is not planning to play around this time. Yan Fuguang found the tent of the art department and was about to lift the curtain to enter when a girl with black framed glasses was about to come out. "Oh, it hurts. Who are you looking for?" Lu Lian rubbed and bumped her painful forehead, while asking and poking on her phone. She was currently very busy. "I'm Yan Fuguang, coming to participate in the program." "Sorry, are you okay?" "Hey." Lu Lian suddenly looked up, with a particularly happy smile on her face. "Miss Yan, you're here. I was just about to call you. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, by the way, my name is Lu Lian." Lu Lian is a staff member of the artist coordination team, specifically responsible for coordinating with 2 amateur guests. She also sent a text message to Yan Fuguang before. She has been curious about Yan Fuguang for a long time. She participated in the entire process from screening the application form to determining the candidate. Although it was not her turn to express her opinion, she still knows why she chose these 2 people. The explorer named Zhang Jing didn't need to mention it, highlighting a specific topic, but this 18-year-old girl named Yan Fuguang is already interesting, and there is also the most controversy surrounding her. The opinions of the opponents are very reasonable. Apart from having traveled to many countries from childhood to adulthood, which can be considered a life experience, Yan Fuguang's application form has no experience related to exploration and survival at all. And the interests and hobbies section is written as none, and the specialties section is also none. However, there is only one argument among those who agree. This little girl named Yan Fuguang is really beautiful. On the application form, in addition to the ID photo, there is also a full-body photo attached. At that time, Yan Fuguang casually found one on his phone and sent it over. That photo was taken during the summer vacation of her sophomore year in France. Yan's mother always likes to find inspiration in her daughter, so she often takes it casually. The background of the photo is a wine estate, with a tall, long-haired girl standing next to a low grape trellis. Behind her is a vintage winery, and she seems to be sulking with no smile on her face. But it was this cold eyebrows and eyes paired with a face that captivated all beings. Although it was just an ordinary photo of life, it made people itch and wish to travel through time and space and immediately come to her side, soothing all her worries. The members of the directing team said that as soon as they saw this face, they wished there would be countless scripts automatically generated in their minds. Although there is no fixed script for this program, the general direction of the program is still needed, and Yan Fuguang feels that the program's storyline can be much more vivid. The photography team even raised their hands to agree on what kind of person to take photos of and what kind of face to take photos of. They are so experienced that this girl doesn't need to say anything, even ID photos can be called artworks. In the end, amidst considerable controversy, the producer finalized the name of Yan Fuguang. After all, with celebrities and professionals, adding a vase is not an option. Yes, that's right. The positioning given by the program team to Yan Fuguang is a vase. After all, it's rare for the applicant to have a mediocre person who is even more beautiful than a celebrity, and there's also a female celebrity named Lulu who likes to publish erotic press releases. Isn't this a dramatic conflict? Entering the tent, Yan Fuguang realized that there was a different world here. The partition had separated many compartments, and the space was relatively spacious. Lu Lian led Yan Fuguang all the way to the small compartment with the number 07. "Miss Yan, please take a seat here for a moment. The makeup artist will come over soon. I'll call back first and explain the program process to you." Yan Fuguang nodded and looked at the small room in front of him. On the left side is an empty dressing table, paired with several folding chairs, with an unopened bottle of mineral water underneath the table. On the right side, there is a clothes hanger standing against the wall, and a changing room is surrounded by thick canvas. Although it looks simple, the configuration is relatively complete. Yan Fuguang took a bottle of water and thought about what to do next. Can he really go to college after recording this program? General Yan, who has received higher education in the interstellar era, is it difficult for him to become a historical tester at a university in this era? Just as Yan Fuguang's thoughts drifted away, someone knocked on the door of the compartment. Please come in. Yan Fuguang turned his head and saw Lu Yan carrying a stack of documents, followed by a pink head. This is makeup artist Eric, he will make your makeup first, said Lu Yan to someone from a later background as he spoke. He handed over the materials and said, this is the tentative program process and precautions. While you watch, I will explain them to you. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Goodwill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Goodwill. Yan Fuguang stood up and extended his right hand to the exquisitely dressed Eric. Hello. Eric was very kind and said, Hi, Miss Yan, just call me Eric. Let's sit down first and make a simple look. His voice is quite gentle, not as outstanding as his hair color. Yan Fuguang returned to his seat, took off his hat, and while loosening his ponytail, he inserted his fingertips into the hair and gently swayed it. And then, oh my God! A burst of exclamation sounded, and Eric's eyes widened wide. Even Lu Yan covered her mouth. Although she had been mentally prepared for Yan Fuguang's beauty, when this face appeared in front of her, she suddenly ran out of words and couldn't find any suitable adjectives after searching her heart and soul. How could it be so beautiful? Yan Fuguang's reaction to the two was not surprising. She had never been ugly in the past decade or so, and this time it was just more perfect. Eric is just an inexperienced makeup artist, otherwise he wouldn't have been assigned to ordinary guests. However, in just a few seconds, countless classic makeup designs flashed through his mind, but in the end, he didn't catch anything because the face in front of him was not suitable to add or subtract a point. Eric wished he could get closer and appreciate it carefully. He really didn't know how to start writing, and everything he did was like adding feet to a snake. In the end, Lu Yan broke the silence and greeted, So what, Eric? It's getting late, your side. Eric finally woke up and quickly replied, Okay, right away. Anyway, first do some sun protection. In the following time, Eric's mouth never stopped, and his exclamation words kept popping out one after another. Lu Yan, who couldn't get in touch, could only interrupt forcefully. If she didn't quickly introduce the process, her task would not be completed. Miss Yan, this morning all the guests set off separately to a deserted island we have chosen. Don't worry, there has been a dedicated person inspecting the island and there are no large wild animals, so there is basically no danger to life. Then the guests will each receive a roadmap, following which they can reach the gathering place. During the journey, there will be corresponding tasks, and basic daily necessities will be exchanged according to the completion rate of the tasks. Then, everyone will live together on the deserted island for 7 days, and the food and accommodation issues for these 7 days will be solved by yourselves. Within this week, we will conduct a 24-hour live broadcast of the lives of all guests, and of course, we will also cut them into official video platforms for program placement later on. There is also the endorsement of Lightning, which is up to the sponsor the final say. They will take the popularity of the live broadcast as the main reference. If possible, they should pay more attention to the excellence of the live broadcast content. Miss Yan, do you have any further questions? Although most of the content was written in the contract, Lu Yan still conscientiously explained it. After all, Yan Fuguang was the youngest among all the guests. Moreover, everyone has a love for beauty. Lu Yan is just an ordinary girl, with an average appearance, an average family background, and an average job. Yan Fuguang's appearance is even more perfect than her most perfect dream. It's impossible for her to grow up like this in her next life, or if she could have such a beautiful daughter, she might go crazy with happiness. Yan Fuguang didn't even know that the program had not started recording yet, and she had already gained a fan. Yan Fuguang listened attentively. No matter how much he wanted to do in his life, he must definitely do what he decided to do well. Do I just need to take care of myself? This is the only issue she cares about. After all, the 5 celebrities are unlikely to be useful, and the other amateur doesn't know what the situation is. Well, there will be both individual and collective tasks, so teamwork is still necessary. Lu Lian also knew that the task was difficult, so she couldn't help but reveal a little insider information. She leaned closer to Yan Fuguang's ear and whispered, "But don't worry too much. There is a great deity in the group who is a wilderness expert. If it's really not possible, you can ask him for help." After finishing speaking, I blinked and paired it with big black framed glasses, which made me particularly pleased. Yan Fuguang couldn't help but laugh, thanking Lu Lian for her kindness. She was not worried about not completing the task, but rather afraid of being delayed by a fool. The styling was completed in about 10 minutes, and Lu Lian took a set of live streaming equipment to help Yan Fuguang put it on. This GoPro will always be carried with you, and there will also be a follow-up team, but they are only responsible for shooting and will not provide any assistance to the guests. If you really can't hold on, you can also apply for withdrawal, but after withdrawal, you can only settle the compensation according to the length of time you have participated, and the final spokesperson will not be able to compete. To be honest, when competing with celebrities on the same stage, there is basically no need for ordinary people to expect spokespersons, but Yan Fuguang is really too unique, and it's not just about his superior appearance. Although I only had contact with Yan Fuguang for just over 20 minutes, her calm and heartfelt demeanor also left a deep impression on Lu Lian. Her eyes were as peaceful as a lake. Even though she was only 18 years old, she was not anxious or impatient, as if she could solve any problem. "Thank you, I understand." Yan Fuguang smiled and thanked. Although she didn't know the reason, she received Lu Lian's kindness. Eric, who had finished his work, silently admired while tidying up. Although he had done little, the thought of himself once painting on such a face made him perfect. Finally, when Lu Lian finished explaining, he couldn't help but remind him, during the shooting, there will be a stylist with the team. Be smart and don't put on makeup, but make sure to apply enough sunscreen, otherwise you will get 100% sunburn. It is also an unwritten rule for celebrity reality shows to have stylists and crew members. No matter how much one flaunts themselves, there is no script, and the basic screen image still needs to be maintained. Even if the celebrity himself doesn't care, the team will still take it very seriously. After all, face is like a foodie and cannot be neglected. Although Yan Fuguang's face had no room for Eric to take action, as a makeup artist, he couldn't bear to see Yan Fuguang's jade-like appearance with even a few flaws, so he had to pay more attention. If everyone appears naked in the later stage, it's okay. If a celebrity can make up, she should be smarter and take the initiative to make requests from the director's team. Don't feel embarrassed and end up suffering on her own. Yan Fuguang originally sneered at the words of the time scammer, but he didn't expect that after only a few days in this world, several people had already expressed goodwill towards her. Are you really here to enjoy happiness in this life? After thinking for a moment, Yan Fuguang found his notebook and wrote down 2 small secrets for beauty and skincare. This was left by an old doctor from the hospital when she was the Empress. Although she didn't need it, it was still acceptable to give it as a small gift to the 2 of them. After all, one was a makeup artist and the other was a girl in her early 20s. The handwriting of Long Feifeng dance really surprised the 2, let alone Yan Fuguang giving them such a gift. A beauty recipe. If you're not confident, you can find a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner to see. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Mom's Phone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Mom's Phone. Dingling. Lu Lian's phone rang a few times, interrupting their thoughts. The official Weibo has released a preview for the broadcast, and all the guests' photo names have been announced. Miss Yan, do you have a Weibo account? If so, I can report it, and the official will let you then. Lu Lian brushed and spoke at the same time. Yan Fuguang shook her head. She didn't want to become famous for the time being. The original owner's parents didn't know that their daughter had set off such a big fireworks display, and suddenly a pair of parents appeared. She hadn't figured out how to face them yet. I don't know if the bug in the time machine is too strange. Every time she passes away, either her family members die early or her parents are unknown. Not only is there a lack of kinship, but love is also lacking. She has lived alone for life after life. Kuren is just so careless, afraid of more and more. Yan Fuguang's phone suddenly shook, and when he took it out, the words "Mom" were bouncing vividly on the screen. Her heartstrings tightened for a moment, she sorted her thoughts, and finally answered the phone. "Hello. Hello, Yen, it's Mom. Where are you? Are you okay? Did someone deceive you into participating in the program? Don't be afraid, Mom will immediately find someone to pick you up. Don't believe anyone who speaks, just stay in place. Mom's friend will be here soon. Baby, be obedient." Before Yan Fuguang could speak, a crisp female voice on the phone fell into her heart with a crackling sound. Without a single word of blame, I was the first to worry about her safety. Yan Fuguang's throat twitched slightly. Is this the feeling of his mother's concern? So what exactly is the conflict between the original owner and their parents? Yan Fuguang, who had not experienced the care of his family, couldn't understand. After a few seconds of silence, Yan Fuguang finally spoke up and said, It's me. I couldn't say "Mom" for a moment, so I had to quickly explain the situation. I wasn't deceived. I volunteered to participate in the program, and the program team is very formal. Don't worry. Mom, how could she not be worried? Have you signed the contract yet? Who is the director? Oh, forget it, let's not do so much for now. Anyway, don't do anything now. Let's wait until Mom's friend arrives. Perhaps I was scared by the previous Yan Fuguang, and the tone on the other end of the phone became even gentler. Mom didn't stop you for no reason, she was just worried about you being scammed. You're only 18 years old, don't let Mom worry, okay, Yen. Why are the last few words trembling? Yan Fuguang thought he had heard wrong. I was planning to say that it was too late for the recording to start, but suddenly she couldn't say anything. The program team announced that they knew about it right away and immediately called to worry about whether they were being deceived. They should be really scared, Miss Yen. Lu Yen didn't know why Yan Fuguang suddenly stopped moving forward. Yan Fuguang was also somewhat helpless, so what should be done now? Her mother asked her to wait for someone to come, and the program team was waiting to start. It's really not possible. Yan Fuguang picked up the phone again and said, "Well, how about this? I'll go find the director now, and you can communicate with me personally." Although it's a bit rogue to suddenly make such a request, it's still only 18 years old now. My family is not at ease and needs to confirm with the director. This reason is absolutely reasonable. Although Yan Fuguang once commanded the world to be exclusive to him, let's forget about his life and do whatever he wants with his identity. The phone seemed to have considered it for a while before agreeing. Okay, then don't hang up the phone. Go find the director now and I'll talk to them. In a manner in France. Ange was wearing pajamas and stood anxiously by the window, clutching her phone tightly, afraid that there might be a sudden disconnection. It was already over 1 a.m. French time, and she, who was already asleep, was suddenly awakened by a domestic phone call. The phone was called by her domestic assistant, who said she saw Yan Fuguang appear on the guest list of a reality show online. Ange didn't believe it at first, but when she opened the website sent by her assistant, she found that the name and photo all matched, and it turned out to be her daughter Yan Fuguang. Countless terrifying thoughts flashed through Ange's heart for a moment, and images of fraud, trafficking, and the like rushed in. The more she thought about it, the more panicked she became. But she was far away, beyond her reach. Ange looked out of the window absent-mindedly, unable to hide her inner anxiety. At this moment, a pair of strong arms passed through her waist and firmly hugged the person in her arms. "Darling, what's wrong? What happened?" A tall and handsome French man appeared behind Anger, with slightly curled brown hair and deep facial features. Although time had left some marks on his eyes, a pair of dark blue eyes still showed that he was a charming man. He is the heir to JYH, the world's largest luxury goods group, and he himself manages a top jewelry brand under JYH with nearly 200 years of history. He has been with Ange for nearly 5 years and is still fascinated by this beautiful, independent, and talented woman to this day. Ngu rarely reveals her fragile side. She turns around and nestles in her lover's arms, whispering, "It's Yen Yen." She seems to have participated in a reality show, and I'm worried she might have been deceived. Anthony patted Ange's shoulder and comforted, "Didn't the phone get through? It shouldn't be any problem. If needed, I can contact the Huaguo branch and ask them for help. Don't worry. Anthony has seen Yen Fuguang many times, and that beautiful little girl has never been very talkative. He knows that Ange cares about this daughter, but the relationship between the mother and daughter seems to have never been so good." On this side, Lu Yen looked bewildered and led Yen Fuguang to find the director. She didn't expect that there would be a parent-teacher meeting segment. "So what, Miss Yen, you're really 18 years old, haven't you kept it a secret?" Lu Yen asked blankly. "To be more precise, it is 18 years old and 25 days old." Lu Yen didn't really doubt anything. After all, she had seen her ID card with her own eyes, but suddenly a parent appeared, and she was a bit big-headed. "That. The director should be very busy now and may not be able to talk to your mother for too long." Lu Yen is also uncertain in her heart. Whether the director has the time to answer the phone at this moment is a matter of 2 words. "It's okay, just find the person." Yen Fuguang understood her meaning, but the title of parent of an 18-year-old girl who has just reached adulthood still has a killing power. Although it may be a bit of a rascal, it works. The first tent at the beginning is the temporary office of the director's team, and there are far more staff entering and leaving than the art department. Lu Yen poked her head in and looked around, finally seeing someone in the crowd. Thank goodness, Director Qing Xiaojiang is inside, but as expected, he is indeed very busy. At this moment, 3 people are gathered around him to report on his work. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Are you the parents of Yen Fuguang? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Are you the parents of Yen Fuguang? Lu Yen bravely walked over, and for a moment, several people's eyes focused on her. She was so nervous that she spoke much faster. "Director, I am Lu Yen from the Art Statistics Group. The mother of guest Yen Fuguang wants to talk to you. Miss Yen is currently outside the tent. Would it be convenient for you to answer the phone?" After speaking in one breath, Lu Yen dared not look up at the director's expression. To be honest, as a minor member of the art department, she is usually not close to the director, and the director may not even know what she looks like. Sure enough, Director Qing Xiaojiang frowned upon hearing these words. Yen Fuguang. Isn't she already an adult? Why do parents still come knocking on her door? You guys coordinate how to do things, didn't you communicate with anyone beforehand? As a chief director, Qing Xiaojiang cannot worry about everything. This kind of communication with guests is definitely handled by the people below. Although he has held countless meetings and reviewed each stage, why does he always make such a low-level mistake at a critical moment? How could he not be upset when he was about to start filming? Fortunately, Qing Xiaojiang has been in the industry for so many years and has encountered all sorts of strange things. Moreover, to be honest, Yen Fuguang is just a high school graduate. If there is really any problem, it must be that their program team is not paying attention. With a sigh, Qing Xiaojiang first instructed his assistant a few words and said angrily, "Let's go, where is the person?" Lu Yen didn't expect it to go so smoothly, and her voice immediately became much happier. This way, it's outside. Chen Xiaojiang lifted the curtain and saw a tall and upright figure. Seemingly hearing a commotion, the tall figure turned around with a perfectly polite smile on its face. "Hello Director Cheng, I am Yan Fuguang." Chen Xiaojiang just saw Qin Yan Fuguang's face. In fact, when he was selecting people, he didn't really want Yan Fuguang. One of the reasons is the age issue. As a well-known variety show director in the industry, although he is not afraid of trouble, he also does not want to be troubled. Just being a newly grown beautiful girl means that there may be many troubles in the future. And it's said that finding a vase is a gimmick, but it's impossible to say whether it will spark during recording. But it couldn't resist the producer's insistence. As a representative of the wealthy father, the producer pursues the maximization of promotional effects. He believes that there will definitely be sparks, so a little bit of difficulty, everyone can overcome it. But now that he truly saw Yan Fuguang, Chen Xiaojiang had to admit that there was indeed a truth to this choice. In his more than 10 years in the entertainment industry, he has seen many handsome men and beautiful women. However, he just lost his composure due to a girl's turn, which shows how stunning Yan Fuguang is. "Haven't you seen anyone passing by with their eyeballs stuck here and unable to move?" Time was tight, and Chen Xiaojiang couldn't think of anything else. He went straight to the topic and said, "Hello Miss Yan, is it your family who wants to talk to me?" With such a swift and decisive style of action, Yan Fuguang saved a lot of trouble and handed over her phone directly. "It's my mother, her surname is An." When Chen Xiaojiang answered the phone, his mind was still rehearsing the process of waiting for the shoot to start. There were two guests who were not easy to get along with, and he had a mind full of lawsuits and didn't take a call from a so-called parent seriously. In 5 seconds, Chen Xiaojiang's face changed from indifferent calm to surprised at the speed of light. His eyes suddenly stared at Yan Fuguang, as if wanting to see through what kind of immortal his own program team had recruited. Lu Lian on the side didn't know what had happened, thinking that their conversation had broken down and she was extremely anxious. Yan Fuguang knew from the director's expression that he couldn't keep his identity hidden. Ange is also considered a major insider in the industry. Although she has long retired from behind the scenes, many female celebrities are crazy about Alaya. This high-end brand that cannot be borrowed or bought is a pain in the hearts of many female celebrities. Chen Xiaojiang has heard of it all. Moreover, as a legendary supermodel of her generation, Ange unified Eastern and Western aesthetics with a mixed-race face. Even today, many loyal fans still repeatedly miss her outstanding performance on the runway. But today, now, at this moment, Ange herself told me personally that the amateur female guest they salvaged from a haystack is her daughter. Chen Xiaojiang was in chaos in the wind. "Oh my goodness. Why do you sneak into our program with this background, and even make your boss's mother call and personally find the director?" Now Chen Xiaojiang dare not neglect, no matter what, he cannot offend people for nothing. He quickly found a quiet corner to explain the current situation to Ange, almost swearing out that he was not a fraud, and even asked his assistant to quickly send an email with the shooting permit and plan. On the other hand, Ange checked her emails and also asked her friends in China to inquire about the situation. After struggling back and forth for almost half an hour, Ngo finally managed to feel at ease. When the phone returned to Yan Fuguang's hands, Chen Xiaojiang seemed to have put down 100 pounds of burden. His own phone had also rang several times just now, all to inquire about the situation. It can be imagined that Ng's level of worry had increased. Although Ngo from Yan Fuguang's side agreed to temporarily shoot, she was still afraid that her daughter would suffer losses. She had contacted a reliable person to temporarily act as an agent for the role, and all affairs during the filming period were taken over by the agent, ensuring the protection of Yan Fuguang's personal rights. For so many years, Yan Fuguang has long been accustomed to being alone in the face of strong winds and heavy rain. Suddenly, such a person showed her meticulous care, which seems to be a good feeling. Chen Xiaojiang didn't know how to arrange Yan Fuguang for a while. Although he promised to keep the little girl's identity confidential, now that he knew she had a good background, could they still play around with an ordinary guest like they had planned? Yan Fuguang seemed to see through Cheng Xiaojiang's concerns. Director, let's stick to the original plan. There's no problem on my end. As if afraid that he wouldn't believe it, Yan Fuguang added, you can trust me. Cheng Xiaojiang also doesn't know why a young girl is so capable of bewitching people. It seems like you want to unconditionally follow her words. Although he had just repeatedly assured the other person on the phone that there would be no danger and the process was very safe, he was now thinking about how exciting it would be. Lu Lian, who had just been confused until now, had no idea what riddles the two were playing. Although Yan Fuguang was still the same as before, the director's attitude towards him seemed to have changed a lot. At this moment, another assistant from the art department ran over and whispered to the director, Director Cheng, there's a small problem with Jian Yuanhang's side. What? Cheng Xiaojiang is going crazy. He just dealt with an ancestor here, and another ancestor came over there. Helplessly, Cheng Xiaojiang could only go and put out the fire. He smiled and said to Yan Fuguang, Miss Yan, please rest for a while. I will have someone inform you when the filming is about to start. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Guest Meeting, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Guest Meeting, 1. Yan Fuguang heard the assistant's words, but she had no idea who Jian Yuanheng was. The original owners of everything related to art kept a distance, let alone the entertainment industry. She didn't want to experience the joy of being a fangirl at all. Lu Lian was also a newcomer to the industry. Suddenly, upon hearing Jian Yuanheng's name, her heart was filled with gossip. She instinctively wanted to discuss it with someone, but at first glance, she saw an indifferent face. Lu Lian was somewhat surprised and said, Miss Yan doesn't know Jian Yuanheng. Otherwise, no one would have heard Jian Yuanheng's name without responding. I don't know. Lu Lian thought she had never seen it with her own eyes. After all, there is no young girl who doesn't know Jian Yuanheng. It's okay, you still have to shoot the program together. It's definitely not a problem to sign and take a group photo then. Lu Lian is so beautiful that she can be considered a fan of Jian Yuanheng. She is quite excited to see a real person this time. Lu Lian flipped out her phone and opened the makeup photo sent by the official announcement of the program team for Yan Fuguang to see. Our photo shoot this time was quite impressive. How about it? It's okay, isn't it? I'll take this one and sign it then. Yan Fuguang glanced at it and only one thought came to his mind. What kind of crooked melon and cracked jujube is this? In the photo, a young man with blonde hair and forehead is seen, with eye-catching eyeliner fluttering gently, his nose seems to be padded with a beam, and his jawline is cut without edges and corners. Isn't this a face that failed plastic surgery? Do you think he looks pretty like this? Yan Fuguang felt that he had reason to suspect that Lu Lian's aesthetics were abnormal. Hey! Lu Lian didn't seem to expect Yan Fuguang to ask such a question. She hesitated for a moment before saying, it's okay. He debuted in South Korea 10 years ago with this style. When he was serving as a storefront, there were countless fans. Although he left the group and returned to China now, fans have loved his outfit for so many years. Perhaps Yan Fuguang's tone was too disdainful, and Lu Lian added with uncertainty, is there anything wrong? Do you really like him? Unexpectedly, Lu Lian shook her head and said, I'm not a staunch fan either. It's okay, after all, TPX was really popular back then. In high school, almost all the girls in the school were fans. I've been watching it for so many years, so I'm used to it. Jian Yuanheng, as the only Chinese in TPX, at that time, attracted a lot of traffic in China. At that time, TPX was almost unstoppable in popularity after its debut. Although it did not make much international fame, it was definitely at the top of the charts in Asia. Later, Jian Yuanhang had a conflict with a South Korean company. When he returned to China, he actually dominated the hot Weibo search for a whole week. Although he is getting older and can no longer compete with the new generation of idols, the basic situation is still there. This time, there is no doubt that he is the one with the highest status in survival on a desolate island. If it weren't for facing a transformation crisis and the management team seeing the popularity of Lighting's promotion, how could he stoop to a lower price to participate in such a disruptive program? When the program team invited celebrities back then, they did encounter great difficulties. The survival reality show, to be honest, had a novel form, while to be honest, it had not yet been tested by the market, and no one knew if it would become popular. Moreover, this program is broadcasted 24 hours a day. How many celebrities can accept their unkempt appearance in front of the camera? No matter how carefully crafted the character design is, it cannot withstand continuous filming 24 hours a day. So apart from Jian Yuanhang, the celebrity guests who participated in this program have almost no big traffic. Either they want to gamble their careers on this program, or they want to take advantage of the popularity of Lightning in the second and third tier. Although he hasn't seen anyone yet, Yan Fuguang has already grasped the temperament of this gentleman Jian. Because what the assistant just said in the latter half of the sentence was that Jian Yuanhang wants to rent a small yacht to stand by at sea, and then let the two assistants accompany him on board. Perhaps Lu Yen will soon experience the feeling of idol collapse. Yan Fuguang didn't speak anymore. Just wait, after all, she still needs time to digest the memories of the original owner and the current situation of this world. Half an hour later than the originally scheduled time, finally someone notified that the machine was about to start up. According to the requirements of the production team, Yan Fuguang didn't bring anything and went to the gathering place wearing sportswear and a baseball cap to welcome her other 6 teammates who were struggling on the deserted island. A row of machine seats have been set up on the beach, and the lighting and theater services are all in place. Behind them, there is a bustling scene of staff, with a grand presence. According to the instructions from the drama management, Yan Fuguang walked through the crowd and appeared on the beach. There are already 2 guests, one is Yang Huohua, the head host of Coconut Channel, and the other is swimmer Jiang Shan, who just won a gold medal at the World Championships. Yang Huohua is already in his 40s, but he is still full of vitality and is renowned for his sociability in the industry. The program has been scheduled to be broadcasted on Coconut Channel, so it is reasonable for Yang Huohua to appear. Having a skilled host present can also regulate the atmosphere of the team. Although Jiang Shan was an athlete before, he has to pave the way for his future life after retiring. He has already signed with a talent agency, and while the popularity of the world champion is still alive, Survival on a Desolate Island is the first permanent variety show that the agency has taken over for him. The 2 of them had just arrived and were chatting at the moment. Seeing a figure wearing sportswear walking towards the crowd, Yang Huohua shouted loudly. "Look, which fairy is here? Are you our guest? Director, you said there will be a beautiful woman appearing this time, is that this one?" In fact, Yang Huohua couldn't even see who the newcomer was under the scorching sun, but as for the heat field, he is familiar with this job. As Yan Fuguang approached, he took off his hat and smiled slightly at the 2 of them. "Hello everyone, my name is Yan Fuguang. Nice to meet you both." For Yan Fuguang, who has tasted 1,000 different types of life, as long as she is willing, she can make everyone feel like a spring breeze. After all, it's better to be harmonious when doing programs with strangers. Yang Huohua was stunned for a second. You should know that his phrase, fairy, was really just a polite expression. He didn't expect that the person who came over was really a fairy. Now, at first glance, the director's words were surprisingly conservative. He immediately reacted and warmly stepped forward to shake hands. Then he turned his head to the director and said angrily, "Where did you guys, such beautiful little girls, find this rough guy? Why didn't you tell me earlier? If I had known earlier, I would have done it again. Isn't this impolite?" After speaking, he pretended to tidy up his hairstyle, coupled with his funny expression, and directly amused a group of people. The director said directly, "I told you, they all said there are beautiful women, you didn't take it seriously yourself." The conversation was hot here, but Jiang Shan felt a bit embarrassed. Athlete, his previous life was relatively simple, and he is only in his 20s and 60s this year. If it weren't for his serious injuries, he might have been able to fight for a few more years. End of this chapter.